Hi, everybody. It's Junior, your Lich, back with the Mite No podcast episode. I don't know, something divisible by 5. And today it's just me and Rudy. Say hi, Rudy.
Hi.
There we go. Noriko couldn't be with us today. That's alright. No big deal. We're gonna dive into some One Piece. Episodes 26 through 30 today. We are wrapping up the Baratier arc. And we start with episode 26, which, oh boy, it's the sad boy flashback episode. So we we
Sanji.
we start off with Gin being a hardworking good boy. I still love Gin. I love him a bunch, even if he's
Finn
threatening
is
to
so
kill Zeph.
cool.
even even if he has Zeph at
Finn is so
gunpoint, because
cool.
I know he's never gonna pull that trigger.
Gin is honestly the coolest. He became even cooler when he took off his little headband.
He's pretty fantastic. I definitely wish we got to see more of him. But we'll talk about that and maybe future potential later. Uh, Pearl is apparently still a thing. We get a little more daddy issues with Sanji and Zeph. Pearl just starts beating the shit out of Sanji, and Luffy yells at him to dodge, which has been ruined for me by Team 4 Star. Whenever someone yells dodge in an anime, I can't help but think of Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Thank you, fucking
I have not
bastards.
watched Team 4 Stars like anime stuff, so yeah.
Well, that's their only stuff I've watched, and it's good. I'm just
I've heard good things about it.
It's fantastic. Their writing is very good. Their comedic timing is very good. It's all very good. My biggest issue is just that they didn't finish it. And I mean, that's their prerogative. I can't like force them to do it, but like I can still be disappointed. I can still feel like, well, you definitely did not do the final arc. All right. That's okay. I mean, I can't be mad at you, but I'll be a little sad about it. But that's Dragon Ball Z Abridged, and we're not a Dragon Ball Z Abridged We Watch podcast, so we'll talk more about One Piece right now. So Sanji won't let Zeph lose his dream of the ship, basically, is his declaration. That this ship, this restaurant was Zeph's dream, and he owes it to the old man, the old geezer, uh, to not let his ship get destroyed. And we get the flashback. And we get little baby Sanji in a kitchen doing chore boy shit, talking about All Blue, the Omni Sea. Um, and everyone has a not the chefs in the kitchen like aren't bad men. Like they don't like mock Sanji really. They point out that it's probably not real, but at the same time they're like, yeah, but wouldn't it be great if it was? Like they're not like some people are when it comes to dreams in One Piece where they just, shit on you for it. I think they were alright. We see the chefs eating leftovers from other people, uh, and Sanji commenting that it's disgusting and throwing the food out, which will be relevant later. Oda wants you to really pay attention to this. And the chefs are like giving Sanji a lesson that on the sea you never know what's gonna happen, so you should always eat food if you have food because you never know when you won't have food. When suddenly pirates. Uh, and then we cut outside of the ship and see Zeph's fucking duck boat because I don't know why Zeph's boat is a duck, but fuck, seeing it is very funny to me. Um, there's a really great moment where the captain of Sanji's ship is like standing there as Zeph boards his vessel, and he just asks him, "How can I help you?" I just found that very funny. And Zeph just yells like "Attack!" and everyone charges in. So Zeph charges in. They're not like killing everyone. They're just taking their valuables and beating up anyone who sort of gets in their way. We haven't really seen Zeph's crew like do a bunch of murder at this point. But Sanji is like in full defense mode, and when some goons try to attack him, he cuts them with his kitchen knife, which is something we would see Sanji like never do later once Zeph gets a hold of him. Because you don't use your kitchen knives as a weapon; they're a tool for cooking. This is a disgrace to the knife, which becomes relevant at some point in the story, but like not majorly. Um, Zeph finds this kid annoying and gives him a swift kick. which sends Sanji across the length of the ship and through a fucking wall. But Sanji, being a main character, and also disposed of great will and ambition, refuses to die and crawls his way back to Zeph and bites onto his fucking boot, exclaiming against the hard tack of Zeph's boot, that he can't die to a pirate like him. He has to find the All Blue. He can't die here. He has to set out to sea and find the mythical ocean one day. Which gets a big laugh from Zeph's crew, as they mock Sanji a bit for that, and Zeph gives him another kick. Um, but Sanji still doesn't die. He's still clinging to life, and I don't think at this point Zeph means to kill him. Uh, at which point one of the crew members calls out that, hey, the storm's getting worse. Zeph, we should really get out of here. And he's like, all right, ignore this kid. Get the loot, let's go. Big wave comes, hits the boat, sweeps across the bow, and takes Sanji overboard. And Zeph, who at this point is in love with this little fucking idiot, uh, just goes, damn it, and dives into the tumultuous sea to go rescue Sanji. At which point we cut back and see a fuck off tsunami catching both ships, at the stern, basically. And they both capsize into the water. So Zeph is swimming in the water trying to save Sanji when both ships start collapsing on top of him. Um, at which point his leg gets stuck, but he can see Sanji off in the distance. So Zeph, being of sound mind, grabs a floating anchor. This scene has always bothered me because that anchor is just floating. It's not, you know, being an anchor. It's not like sinking directly to the bottom. It's just kind of hanging in limbo beside him. But whatever. He wraps the anchor around his leg, and sort of pushes the two boats apart, causing it to ripcord his leg off. Which is pretty fucking metal. And then he swings down to rescue Sanji. Now I want to do a quick. Well, I'll talk about it in a minute. But he rescues Sanji, and the next we see Sanji wakes up on a rock. This sort of barren, massive rock rock island standing in the middle of the ocean. Uh,
Hang on.
with
Wait. What you reminded me.
okay.
How on earth is Zeph still alive? This man
Blood
wrapped an anchor chain round his leg.
blood
Shouldn't he
doesn't
have bled
happen.
out to
No,
death?
blood doesn't happen in One Piece. You will see many characters lose more blood than their body could possibly hold and not die.
Okay, no one's human in One Piece, clearly, because
Well,
apparently you
that's
cut your leg off and you don't
to,
die of blood loss.
to be fair, it's not set on Earth. We have no idea what these things that look like humans are made of. Like technically, Oda's never went yet. Oh yeah, all the people in One Piece are generic humans from our world. He's just like, no, they're people. And we will find there are many different races in this planet that just don't exist in our world who are really weird, like the fishmen, who we've heard mentioned a few times over the story, but we'll see
Oh,
more of soon.
is that Arlong?
Arlong is a fishman. I don't think the
Ah!
fishman would find him. Well, that explains the big nose. That's his actual nose. He's a shark. Like
He's
he's
a
like a
shark.
saw nose shark or something. Yeah.
No wonder he has a razor sharp.
Yeah,
You
his nose.
probably you probably shoot him through a building and nose would probably pierce both sides.
Well, you might see that happen in a few episodes. That's still a
And
ways
imagine if
away.
they called that. That would be legendary.
I don't
That'd be
think
legendary if they actually called that.
it's not quite that, but his nose does get used a lot. Until it doesn't. Ooh, and that's a rough scene to watch, but in a very rewarding way. Um, but let's continue with this before I get sidetracked and forget what I want to bring up. So they're on this weird fucking massive rock. There's a bunch of fish in the water, but they can't get down to safely fish and still make it back up to the rock. So Zeph gives Sanji this little bag full of food and says, make it fucking last, it's all you're getting. Sanji sees Zeph with this huge bag and is like, you're gonna keep that huge bag of food for yourself? Like, why don't you give me more? And Zeph says, he's an adult, his body burns more calories, he needs more food than you. Which, I mean, isn't wrong. Like, yeah, Sanji's a growing boy, but humans do just require, like, as they get older, their bodies get bigger. You just need more fuel to run the engines. Um, he tells Sanji to go sit on the other side of the rock, and they should not communicate with each other unless they see a ship to conserve as much energy as possible. So Sanji, we cut to Sanji and we see this little chef's apprentice pull out all this food. And he's like, "All right, I have 5 days of food. Now there should be a ship in 5 days, but just in case, I'm gonna divide this food up so it will last 20 days, just in case." We then cut to 25 days later. uh, Sanji is looking pretty bad, and most of the food is gone. He has a little bit of molded, crusty bread, and he's eating it. And while he's eating, Oda, like a sadistic prick, is replaying the scene of Sanji throwing out food and mocking the other chefs for eating people's leftovers. Um, and he kind of gets startled in that memory, and drops his bread over the side, which is a heart wrenching moment. Um, so there's another cut now that Sanji is out of food. So the last bit of food he ate was on day 25. And I counted the ticks in real time as we got the transition to the next scene, uh, where a total of 47 days have passed uh, since becoming marooned on this rock. At least Sanji has written down 47 days, which means he's gone 22 days without food at this point. He is not. He's not good. He's basically a skeleton. It's pretty rough to watch. Um, he uses what little energy he can muster to sort of crawl up a rock to peek at Zeph, assuming that the old man's probably dead by now, and maybe he left some food. And what he sees is Zeph still sitting there, potentially alive. He says he's alive, with that huge bag still mostly full of things. And Sanji's like, he has so much food still. So Sanji goes like real starvation crazy and whips out his chef's knife and is gonna go kill Zeph for his food or steal it. So Zeph, without even looking, like here's Sanji coming up behind him because he's a starved animal at this point. He's not really being that stealthy, even though he's trying. Um, and Zeph is like, "Did you see a ship? Because if you didn't, you should be conserving your energy and not over here. Like you're being an idiot. What are you doing?" And Sanji says, "I'm gonna steal your food. You have so much of it. I need some." And he cuts his knife into the bag, and out spills a ton of the stolen treasure from the other ship. And Zeph has this moment where he goes, "Isn't it funny? I have all this money, but no food." Uh, and Sanji realizes that Zeph gave him all the food. And Zeph has just been surviving for 47 days on nothing. And Sanji runs up to him, like in this realization that Zeph gave him all the food. Like, why? Why did you do this? And that's when he sees that Zeph is missing his leg. And Sanji has a little cry against him, like, what happened? And then Sanji remembers being underwater and seeing Zeph ripcord his leg off to rescue him, having thought that that was just a dream when he was unconscious. Now, in the manga, we're bringing up the manga here now, folks. So in the manga, the scene where Zeph ripcords his leg is like a really small panel in the middle of a page in like a big spread. And I didn't see it when I read the manga for the first few times because I'm a fast reader and ADHD is a hell of a drug. So like when I'm looking at a manga page, sometimes I can miss details because I'm reading through it too quickly. I for a very long time thought the implication of this was that Zeph ate his own leg to survive, which is a lot more metal than what happened. But it wasn't until like one of my rewatches, like when I was rewatching, I was like, wait, did they change Zeph's story for the anime to make it less gruesome because Oda didn't want to like involve cannibalism? And then I went back to the manga and saw like the very small panels that are like, oh, there's the anchor and the blood in the air. Like, oh. I'm just an idiot. But young Junior reading One Piece for the first time for like the first two read throughs of the manga was completely convinced that Zeph ate his own leg after giving Sanji all the food. Which was like,
How else would he survive with that?
right? Like that's way more like, don't get me wrong, ripcording your leg off with the anchor is pretty sick, but giving the kid all your food and then eating your own leg is pretty fucking metal.
Pretty gnarly.
Right? Like in my head, I was like, holy shit, One Piece just went there. Like the dude not only ate a part of his own body to survive after giving all his food to Sanji, he ate his leg. Like the dude known for kicking people, like his pride, his weapon. He ate it. He ate his own fucking leg. Um, and I was like, holy shit. Um, I was blown away by that in my head, but again, I was proven wrong later. Uh, I don't know which version I like more. In my head, I think the cannibalism is cooler, personally. But maybe Oda just doesn't want to cross that line. So Zeph like collapses because again he hasn't eaten in 47 days, as far as we know. And Sanji's once again asking him why, and Zeph explains that all blue was his dream. And it's like, ah, he saw himself in Sanji. And again, this is a big part of like One Piece and just shonen battle manga in general, the sense of inherited will. It's a big thing in One Piece. It's a very big thing in Naruto. It's a huge thing in Naruto. It is like 90% of Naruto substance. Um, is the whole concept of an inherited will and what we pass on to other people. Um, and so we discover why Zeph was so attached to Sanji. It wasn't just his desire not to die. It wasn't just his raw gusto. It was they had the same dream. Sanji was in many ways probably the same way as young Zeph. He talks about how hungry he is and how terrible the ocean is and terrifying it can be, and how he wishes he could open a restaurant on the sea so that if those starving people find it, the sea won't take them, that they can be saved, that they can eat and survive the terror of the sea. And this is where the Baratier sort of story comes in. At which point there is a ship on the distance, past Zeph, who has collapsed now and is like dying. And I tear up a little bit here. This doesn't get the tears flowing, but it does get me ready to cry. Like the same with the Usopp story, where like Sanji just like starts yelling for the ship, and he's not saying "Come save us." He's saying the old man is gonna die. Don't let him die. His only instinct in this moment is to save Zeph. And this will be a big part of Sanji's character that I love and I wish we got to see more of, and we do sometimes, but not always. Um, but Sanji basically has a superpower. And his superpower is that he's really fucking nice. Like instinctively. He is a nice person. He is empathetic, he is emotional, and he is just sort of like the prime example of what a good person could be sometimes. Once you get past the whole pervert part of his character that Oda does for the jokes and whatnot. And like that hits me because watching this starving kid not think of himself in this moment. Like yeah, he's going to get saved too, but he's not yelling for him to get saved. He's not yelling for them to get saved. He's yelling for Zeph to get saved. This man saved him. I can't let saved me. I can't let him die. It's just really good. All right, it's really good. It's chef's kiss. If you don't mind the pun, it's very good. Uh, it's fantastic. And that's the end of the flashback, basically. Um, and so like again, people are like asking Sanji like, why won't you give up? Like, why won't you run away? And Sanji basically says that Zeph gave up his leg for Sanji, and this ship is Zeph's treasure, and he cannot do anything that would allow the ship to be destroyed. And we get a really good view of Luffy who just fucking loves the boy. It's just like Luffy hears this and understands now why Sanji is doing this, and just instinctively like falls more in love with Sanji. And of course, Luffy is a very simple man. He understands what he needs to do, so he jumps in the air and goes to perform an attack. The Gum Gum Ono, the axe, and Sanji calls out like, "You can't attack them; they'll shoot Zeph. Stop!" And Luffy fucking just destroys the part of the ship they're on. he just he just destroys the fin they deployed, taking away everyone's foothold, and that's the end of the episode. So how did you feel about the flashback with Sanji? You were the one most interested in seeing Sanji. So now that you've learned part of his backstory, how are you feeling?
I saw the backstory of Sanji. It was very nice. I think with the backstory wise, I, again I'm probably biased on this, but honestly, I think backstory wise, my two favorites were Zoro and Sanji's of the ones we've seen so far.
Not Usopp's?
Hmm?
Not Usopp's?
No, was Usopp and Luffy's were kind of meh. I'll be
Well,
honest, they're kind of meh.
Luffy's gets expanded later. We still have a lot to
Mm,
learn about Luffy. Um, Usopp not as
mm,
much. Usopp, I mean, I still feel more of an emotional connection to Usopp than Zoro's. Um, I just find the whole thing with Kuino was just like a little too clean and fast. I don't know. I wish there was more to it. Um,
I would say yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah, I
like
would say those two are my favorite. Probably Sanji's is more bit more.
my favorite backstory, that character won't be introduced for a little while yet. But that is the end of this episode with Luffy destroying the fin. So let's dive right into episode 27.
That's hilarious because dive uh people will be diving in the ocean soon.
True. So Luffy's logic is infallible as we start episode 27, where Sanji's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, it's simple. If I destroy the ship, the pirates will just leave, and then Zeph will be okay." And I do want to bring up that the title spoils Gin's importance, and this is something that One Piece just does that I hate. But the title for the episode spoils the end of the episode always. Like they just do that. If a fight's
Like
ending, they'll just be like the end of the fight, and I'm like, well, I guess the fight ends this episode.
Captain what like
Commander,
Commander
basically,
Yin.
yeah, because we find out that Gin is basically Krieg's second in command and the head commander of the fleet. Um, Gin is still hesitating to kill Zeph, even though um Don is ordering him to do it. And we have, oh, this is a good line. This is good, Luffy. This is like Luffy 101. This is so good. Where Sanji is like grabbing Luffy, furious that he's like risking destroying the ship and whatnot. And how he has to repay the old man's kindness even if it means dying. And Luffy just fucking stares him down and says, "Dying isn't something you should do to repay kindness." And it's just, oh, it's so good. It's such a good lesson. It's like, that's not what he saved you for. Do you think that would make him happy knowing you died to keep this place afloat? Because it wouldn't. That's not how you repay kindness. You don't repay a kind deed by dying. You repay a kind deed by living your best life. Like, it's just like, damn, Luffy. Ah, I love when they let you be smart. Ah, it's such a good line. So Pearl is rushing Sanji and Luffy at this point, and Gin, abandoning Zeph, rushes forward and shatters Pearl's armor with his jite. and decides he has to do it himself. He can't let anyone else have Sanji. It has to be him. Um, I love Jite, the weapon that Gin uses. I have always loved Jite in at least one of the stories I've written for things and stuff. One of the main characters uses a Jite. I love them. They're so cool. His Jite are kind of dumb, but I mean the Jite my character uses are like modeled completely off of his, but like more realistically small. So I guess I'm also an idiot. And then there's just Luffy going, my plan worked to lure Gin away from Zeph. Which is just prime Luffy. And Sanji, of course, calls him on his shit immediately. But that's a very good moment. Um, and again, there's some more posturing from the Krieg pirates, and Luffy again, just like, matter of factly, like I won't lose to weaklings like you, and that hurts everyone except Krieg. Even though he definitely got hurt by the comments Luffy is throwing too, but he's trying to act bigger than it. He's like, "Oh, if you get mad at being called weak, you are weak because it's just your insecurities." But he looks like he's ready to pop a vein in his head. Uh, and everyone's like, "Yeah, we were the strongest in the East Blue, the undisputed." And then Luffy just goes, "Wasn't that just because there were more of you than anyone else?" And the whole fucking sea goes quiet. And Sanji goes, well, see, there you go. You hit the button. And Krieg just is so furious, and all the Krieg pirates are furious, and Luffy's just like, "Yep, I'm right." So now we get introduced to another side of Gin's character. We find out that he is the commander in chief of the Krieg pirates, Don Krieg's second in command, the most loyal of all of his members, the demon Gin. Uh, yeah.
Commando King.
Um,
Point.
and Gin's pretty tough. He would be probably be an equal match to Sanji, if Sanji wasn't so beat up from taking those hits from Pearl, voluntarily. Him and Sanji start going at each other. Um, Sanji gets a good kick to his face, but gets his ribs broken. You'll find over the course of this story that Sanji's kind of the king of getting his ribs broken. There was a lot of uncomfortable bone cracking sounds, which was funny. Um, Luffy and Krieg do some shtick together, which is dumb but doesn't really amount to anything. I just wrote down Luffy and Krieg are idiots, as is Sanji. And that Gin's a good boy, and then the bone sounds. Um, there's a moment where Gin has Sanji pinned to the ground, and he's about to bring the other Jite down on his head, and Sanji jumps out of the way and kicks him in the fucking head because Gin hesitated for just a fraction, and Sanji saw it. But he's so busted right now that the force of his own kicks are causing him intense pain. Um, and Sanji calls out Gin because like Gin totally could have killed him there, but hesitated. Like he's showing pity on Sanji, and that's pissing him off. Um, and Gin is just a crying mess and declares that he can't kill Sanji. He could kill anyone in the world for Don Krieg, but he can't kill this man. And we get the flashbacks of Sanji using that superpower I brought up from the previous episode. Because Gin brings it up that no one in the world had ever shown him the kindness Sanji did. No one had ever taken him from the brink of death to life again selflessly, no matter what the risk was to themselves, like he did. And again, Sanji's superpower is he's just impossibly kind to anyone who needs kindness in their life. And it is Sanji's most redeeming quality. And Gin, this demon, this murderer, is just crying begging for Don Krieg to abandon the Baratier and just sail away and sleep this off like a bad hangover. Um, which pisses Krieg off. Uh, obviously. So he whips out his hand cannon and goes, "I'm gonna fucking use poison and kill everyone. Everyone dies." Luffy goes to stop him, and Krieg shoots a bunch of stakes at him. Luffy, dodges back to the footing where Gin and everyone is. Um, Krieg goes to launch the cannon, and Gin pulls out a gas mask, and Krieg tells him to throw that mask away because he doesn't deserve to be alive anymore for betraying him. So Gin throws the mask away because he's a fucking brainwashed idiot. Um, Willingly brainwashed, but still an idiot. Krieg shoots the MH5 gas bomb. Luffy in his panic steals two masks from some of the Krieg pirates in the water, tosses them back to Gin and Sanji, and when he goes to steal one for himself, everyone is dived under the water. And he just has this moment of panic where he realizes he can't find a mask, and that's where the episode ends. We got to see
That's sort
Gin.
of religion.
We got to see Gin be awesome. I love Gin.
Gin's very cool.
He is a good boy. I
I'll be
again.
honest.
Oh,
I'll be honest. If he didn't, I'll be honest. If he didn't do what he did in episode 30, when we come back, when we come to that. If he didn't do what he did in episode 30, I have a feeling he and Sanji might have been best
I did like write down like in my notes I have the quote "I can't kill this man," followed immediately by "I'm a pro Sanji Gin shipper. Deal with it." Like I wrote that in my notes, and I'm like, there has to be fanfic of it, like 20-year-old deliciously cringe, just horny Gin Sanji fanfic. I don't even know what you would call that ship.
I'm just
Maybe the Black Demon because Sanji gets called Blackfoot Sanji eventually. Like that becomes his epitaph.
uh,
Like where Zeph was Red Leg Zeph, Sanji becomes like Blackfoot Sanji.
I'm gonna regret this. Oh, I'll have to do a capital. Oh,
What was that? You're cutting
I'm
out a lot.
sorry. Now you made me need to see if this exists.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
probably
I
gonna
mean there's
regret this
definitely there's
heavily.
definitely fanfic on it. Whether or not that fanfic still exists online is a question because again, like Yin was only relevant in the story 25 years ago. Oh, we got static. Oh, I'm sorry everyone.
Oh, no.
Oh, Ready,
This is the thing.
Rudy's
We
having some
battle.
mic
We
problems.
could.
You're a little muffled too. We're having a little hard time parsing you. Your intelligibilities get down a bit.
I'm getting well.
Oh, hold up. Let me just mute things on my end for a second till the static goes away. All right. We've been experiencing some technical difficulties today. Hopefully that'll be fixed in a moment. But yes, I haven't read Gin X Sanji Yaoi fanfic, but man, did watching this episode
I
again
don't know.
really
Is
make me
it
want it.
fixing itself? Or is it fixing itself, or are we?
No, right now
I
you
don't
sound
know.
okay. Right now you sound okay, and I can make
Oh,
out what you're
okay.
saying.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Um.
Sometimes you get a little ineligible. It's a sort of muffled sound though. But oh,
Oh
static.
no. Oh. Oh. Also a double. Oh no. Not a double. I'm thinking.
All right.
You know what? You know what? I'm just gonna leave that alone. I regret ever searching up Sanji X skin. Please kill me.
Oh, how could you forget it? Why is there art? Hold up, now I want to look it up. Where's my phone? Well,
No, there is one. There is one. I went incognito mode because I didn't want it on my search history.
I don't give a fuck about my search history. What the fuck are you talking about? Oh my god, they're so
Do it.
cute. There's more than one.
The
Oh my
images are
god.
fine, but
It's
if you
so
actually
cute.
find a website with the fanfic on it, just don't. No. I saw the word fever and I was out.
Oh my god, they're so cute. And Gin is such like a crackhead. Like he looks like such a crackhead. I love it. My old roommate was really into One Piece, and she was in love with the crackheads. I'm surprised she wasn't more into like Ginnick Sanji. I think that might just be because she's not that into Sanji. I don't know.
Oh, Sanji's great.
I will send her cute crackheads gif Sanji Gin art and see how she reacts. Um. So yeah, on to the next episode.
That is good. Okay.
Episode 28. So Luffy, we recap the oncoming attack. Luffy's panicking when suddenly a mask pops down beside him and he throws it on. Guess whose mask it is? It's Gin's. Um, oh, there was a really fucking weird moment where the gas happens, and like some of the cooks are like, "What human being would use gas in an attack?" And I'm like, World War I happened. Like this is a weird. Like don't get me wrong, it's wrong, and it's not a thing that's done anymore, and it's like abhorrent and like I'm pretty sure against the Geneva Convention, but like it
Probably
did
mean like
happen.
on the pirate sea. Like on the pirate sea, who uses gas?
Oh yeah, no, like I get it. It's just the way they were saying it, I was like, wow, this is rough. Fair enough. Um, so there's a moment where, oh Jesus, who says it? I think Krieg says the line, "Idiots don't learn till they die." Um, Luffy realizes Gin throw him the mask. Luffy is upset because Gin is still wholly committed to Krieg. Even though he knows Krieg is bad and Krieg would kill him, Gin is still loyal to his decision, his original decision to follow him. And this is a motif that will come up much later, in a big way. No, a little static, a little static. Wow.
Oh, not again. It doesn't. The worst part is it doesn't show up on my little uh audio mixer,
It's
so I have
it's
no idea when the static is.
it's gone right now. So I'll talk faster. um,
Oh no.
this is a big motif of something that pisses Luffy off, where someone knows they're wrong, knows that they've made the wrong choice, like being allied or devoted to someone, but refuses to change even in the face of being wrong because they've made that commitment and they're not going to break it. Um so Luffy's pretty pissed. Um for sure. We learn in this scene, oh, static's back a little bit. Oh, static's back a lot. Wah, wah.
It's alright.
There we go. We learn why Gin was captured by Full Body. We find out that he jumped in a different ship, threw on some of Krieg's clothing, and lured Full Body away from the rest of the crew, getting captured himself to spare everyone. Because the Krieg members are like, there's no way Don Krieg would actually kill Gin because he's been there since the beginning. He's his most loyal member. He's the one that we all aspire to be. He's the absolute ally, and it's like, Krieg doesn't give a fuck. He's a sociopath. Uh, and like Luffy fucking stares down Krieg, and Krieg, is throwing more insults his way, and Luffy's just like, I won't die. And Zeph is like, I might love this little straw hat bastard, which is fantastic. Um, and so we actually get the start of Luffy versus Krieg. Zeph has this beautiful line to Sanji, as Luffy starts rushing towards Krieg into the fire, and he brings up Luffy's determination and his lack of fear in the face of death. And he says it's either instinctual that Luffy knows he doesn't need to be afraid, or just absolute blind faith in his own ability to succeed. Either way, you do not want someone like Luffy as your enemy because they will win. And boy, does that foreshadow the entire series. Is the series not just people pissing Luffy off and then finding out that that boy's ambition and willpower to fucking not die is bigger than everyone else's? It's just, I found it very funny. Um, and it brings us to similarities to young Sanji. That kid rushing back into Zeph, clawing his way back to Zeph after getting that brutal kick to bite his foot. Just that sheer, absolute determination to not die. Um, Patty and Carney are off on the side trying to save Gin and being dumb. Oh my God, there was something so stupid where they're like,
Her face.
what was that?
They said, yeah, because these cats bring the arrow purple face.
Well, the really stupid shit was like Sanji tells them to go get an antidote for food poisoning, and I'm like, that's not how antidotes work for poisoning. And then Zeph is like, put on the mask. It probably has static, lots of static.
It just won't stop.
It seems to kick in a lot when your head is facing down on the screen. I don't know if that's a correlation to a cord being faulty or something. Wah, it's back.
Sorry, it's gonna be a pathetic.
Wah.
Okay.
I mean, now there's no static, but I also can't hear you. Like, you sound like you're a mile away.
Oh. Oh no.
Oh, now you sound a bit better.
Oh, okay. I literally didn't make any adjustments. Oh.
Alright,
If it comes again, let me know. I'll try adjusting the pop filter again.
no problem. I'm all about it. So there was this really stupid moment where Zeph tells him to throw the gas. Oh, it's back. Oh, that's real bad. Alright, it's gone for right now. I don't know if you've muted yourself, but it's gone. Oh. No, it's still there.
It won't give up, will it?
Nope, never. I don't know what you did to
Did you
deserve this,
say?
but karma's paying you back for something.
I'm gonna mute because this is gonna be painful. So I'm gonna move it a whole lot.
Alright, well, why I have this moment? There was a really stupid moment where Zeph tells him to throw on the gas mask because it probably has some sort of antidote. And I'm like, that's not how gas masks work. Um, so yeah, like, there is no reason for Gin to be alive other than Oda wanted Gin to be alive and just decided that gas doesn't work and fucking gas masks have like magical healing properties. It was really stupid. And like, don't get me wrong, I don't want Gin to die, but man, was it really stupid seeing those lines and having to experience them as a person in this the year of our Lord 2022.
Okay, I'm back, and I'll be able to tell if static appears because I have OBS open to tell me.
All right, there is no current static, but you do have a little crispness to your voice. I'll let you know that. Just saying. But it's not
Okay,
static.
as long as there's no static, that should be fine.
All right, so that was just really stupid. And I felt that that was really stupid. Patty and Kearney are trying to save Gin and being relatively dumb. Luffy, I just wrote down Luffy's a badass motherfucker. Um, so he gets a pretty big hit on Krieg, takes a lot of hits from the spears. Krieg whips out like this iron coat full of spikes, throws it up in front of himself, and Luffy just fucking hits him.
The
Doesn't give a
porcupine.
fuck. Luffy does not give half a fuck. Which is fantastic. Krieg manages to pull himself back up to his feet and whips out his spear. Uh,
The bomb spear.
yeah, the mighty battle spear, or whatever the fuck they call it. It's really dumb. Um, I did write down that Luffy is too thin. We see a lot of scenes here with Luffy being blown around, and boy, the boy's just nothing but sticks. And like in current One Piece, we'll get there eventually. Luffy is hella thick, but everyone is also hella thick with like three C's. Um, but
Damn,
like,
that's pretty thick.
yeah, it's. I mean, Zoro's neck doesn't stop. His neck just is a body. Um, yeah, the animation's doing some weird stuff right now with the story. Like everyone's neck has become as thick as a normal person, like their entire body. Uh, so Luffy, so I wrote down a few things because one of the fucking crew members says that that spear fucking that Krieg is spinning around weighs a ton. And I was like, Oda doesn't know what a ton is. That's my note. He there's no way on earth that spear weighs like, 2,000 pounds. It's just it's like Oda's just using words he thinks sound neat. He doesn't understand what things are.
Saying
There's
it like you basically know the guy.
I mean, we've spent a lot of years together. I mean, he doesn't know shit. I love him, but man, he's a dumbass sometimes. Like, oh yeah. I mean, Krieg is strong. Don't get me wrong. We saw him pick up that boat earlier, so who knows? Maybe this spear does weigh 2,000 pounds, but it definitely doesn't move in space like an object that weighs 2,000 pounds.
Wait, no, what I think I think it does weigh an actual ton, but like Don Krieg is like steroids or something.
Well, Don Krieg is very strong. Like that's the thing. Like this is the weird thing about Don Krieg is that he is strong enough to not need to resort to underhanded bullshit, but he does it anyways. And that might be why Luffy dislikes him the most. Because Krieg physically is strong, he just lacks the conviction or willpower to use that strength without cheating. I don't know. It's a whole
The
thing.
cheater.
So Luffy like blocks the spear, it explodes whenever it hits anything. Um he throws it a few times. Zeph is just watching, and Sanji's like, "Why doesn't he dodge? Like, what's he doing? His body can't handle this." And Zeph is going on this dumb romantic spiel about Luffy and his spear, Luffy's indomitable spear of determination. Um, and there's a really big emphasis while Luffy's getting hit by the spear, um, for the sound. I don't know if you caught it, but every time Krieg swings the spear at Luffy, we get the exact same sound from the first time he did it, where Luffy punched the spear. Because at the end of the episode, the spear fucking shatters, and Krieg flips out and goes, "What happened?" And Luffy goes, "I punched it 5 times." Each time that Krieg threw it at him, we hear the sound of Luffy punching it in the explosion, the fist on metal clang that happens. He
But I
wasn't.
was like, I didn't see him punch it 5 times. I only saw three. So how can that be?
It's in each of the explosions. Each of the 5 times he gets hit with it, there's the sound of him punching it. Uh, they were very very cagey with the audio to get that across. They reused like the same audio from the first time where we see him very clearly like catch the spear in his fists. So Luffy punches the spear 5 times, letting himself get hit by these explosion 5 times just to prove that he could break it. And this will carry on to the next episode because Luffy doesn't like things not breaking when he punches them, and we'll find out more about that. But that's the end of that episode. It ends with Luffy being like, "I punched it 5 times, you piece of shit." Any comments for this episode? Again, a lot of these episodes right now where we're at is mostly fighting, not a ton of storyline, so they go by pretty quick.
I'll be honest, I think with each like big bad in the series, the battles are getting better and better. Like Bucky was cool with the buggy ball, but it wasn't really much else than that. Then it was Captain Kudo with his like cat claws, which was really, really cool. And the little tappy foot
Yeah,
dance.
his pussyfoot maneuver.
And now we have Don Krieg, who's like this strong man with an army of like 5,000 men, which probably mostly gone down the drain in the Grand
Yeah,
Line.
they have like 100 right
And
now.
it's 800.
100. There's about 100 men
Oh,
left.
okay. Yeah. And he has this explosive spear and like this full golden body armor. Like, and he has guns just hidden in his armor as well. Like, how do they keep getting better and better?
Well, they'll keep doing more impressive shit as we move on. We're about halfway, I think, to the introduction of my favorite villain.
I think we're about halfway through the entirety of East Blue, I think. Judging by the episodes,
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at
yeah.
the
East Blue ends at around episode 60. So at the end of this episode, we
like
will be
63.
officially at the halfway arc. There's only two more real big canon arcs left, and one very small, like 3 episode filler arc, but that's very good. Um, so yeah, that takes us to episode 29, where once again Sanji's like his body can't hold up, but we realize that Luffy has lured Krieg onto better footing so he can properly fight him. And Krieg once again calls Luffy's bluff, and Luffy just once again very matter of factly says, "It's not a bluff." So Luffy breaks the mast and throws a piece at Krieg, who whips out a wrist-mounted flamethrower, um, and destroys the mast. Luffy's up in the air above him. He whips out the Gatling gun, baby. Um, Pings it to the armor. Krieg takes it because his armor is wood steel, whatever. Um, Luffy hits him with the pistol. Um, he takes it. There's still a ton of force, but Krieg doesn't feel all of it because again the armor absorbs a lot. He goes on to say about how the armor is like indestructible, but Luffy says like I think I'm pretty close. Like Luffy's like I'm the one hitting it. I'm pretty close to breaking through. Like I can feel it. So he hits him with a bazooka. Krieg goes up into the air. Krieg drops some bombs. Um, and hits Luffy in the spleen. Oh no, sorry. Krieg drops some bombs, sort of destroying the footing Luffy has. Luffy hits him with a bazooka in the air. Bazooka number 2 shatters the armor and hits Krieg in the spleen, which is great. Uh,
It's like I could tell well when I was watching it. Like I don't pay attention to the small stuff, but literally when Luffy did the first Gum Gum Bazooka, and then it did the second one, I'm like, wait, that's the same voice clip as the first one.
oh, definitely. I mean, why record 2 lines when you're saying the same thing? I'm not criticizing them for that. That's just whatever. I don't care. That it's the animation that bothers me, where there's just like PNGs that are like being zoomed in on. That's annoying. If you're gonna reuse a voice
PNG
asset, I don't mind.
might as well make One Piece a PNG show.
The original
Show a
PNG
PNG.
tuber, One Piece.
One
Uh,
Piece Luffy PNG tuber.
I think you'd get in trouble. I don't think you'd be able to. Oh man, think of how
That would
much.
be heavy copyright.
Think, but
Imagine if like Funimation. Well, no, not Funimation.
well, that's
Imagine
what I was
like
about to say. Like, think if Shonen Jump hired Luffy's VA to just be a VTuber as Luffy. Think think of the
mhm.
money Shonen Jump could pull in with like Demon Slayer voice actor VTubers. Like the problem with that is that the voice actors then have to be entertaining outside of a script, and I don't think that would work.
Yeah, it would.
But that's a wild idea. So, Krieg still has more trick up sleeve and throws a steel net over the air, knowing that if he can drag Luffy into the water, Luffy will die, which isn't wrong. Um,
He ate the gum gum fruit, so of course it's gonna die. He can't swim because of the fruit.
yeah, but we have this beautiful moment where, boy, they're falling really slow. Like, this is another cool thing about One Piece. The gravity of the One Piece world, because again, once again, none of these people are humans. Like, we don't know. But the gravity of One Piece is also kind of fucky. People just kind of float a lot. Uh, so we have this beautiful scene where they're falling slowly, and Luffy manages to stick his super thin arms and legs out the net. And he's like, well, as long as I can get my arms and hands out of the net, I can still beat you. So he spins his legs down the length of the neck, or the net, sorry, and locks Krieg's jaw in his feet, and then uses another one-time only move, the Gum Gum No giant gavel, where he basically
Sorry,
buzzsaws Krieg through the air and then tombstone
think
pile drivers him into the ship.
we will spinny like and right on the ship, knocking him unconscious.
Yep. We will see Luffy do more spinny things, but I don't think he ever calls any of them the giant gavel again. I think they're all a little different. But Luffy, of course, falls into the water. And Sanji is just like hanging out there talking with Zeph or like reacting to this. And Zeph goes, "Hey, you realize he's not gonna come back to the surface, right? Like, go save him. Like, you realize he can't swim." And Sanji's like, "What? Why didn't you tell me?" And I'm like, "Sanji, everyone, everyone brought this up earlier. You were here for this." Uh, so I think that's really silly that they made Sanji forget that. So Krieg goes down. Gin wakes up just in time. He's recovered from the poison, I guess, in a matter of like 3 minutes. Just in enough time to find out that Krieg has gone down. We see Sanji throwing off his coat, his suit coat, and his shoes. All right, so this is something that's always bothered me about Sanji, and I want to find your opinion on it. Um, Fucker is just barefoot in those like shoes. Like I don't know about other people, but I grew up like to never do that, and it boy does it feel weird to be in shoes without socks on.
I mean, like, yeah, I put socks on when I wear shoes.
I I
There was
I
a time in my life. There was a time in my life where I just didn't wear socks whatsoever, which I look back on and I'm like, why?
I could never. I could never. Like, don't get me wrong. When I'm home, no shoes, like no socks. That's fine. But like if
Yeah.
I'm putting shoes on that aren't sandals, I put
Mm.
slip like socks on. And it's just
Yeah, I
it
do that
always
as well.
skeezes me out seeing Sanji kick his shoes off whenever he does it. Cause he's walking around in these like business loafers in like a tropical environment, fucking barefoot. And I'm like, ew. My dude,
Like,
put socks on.
I don't mind. It's his style. He does what he wants.
So he dives into the water to try and find Luffy. He gets down and once again sees that Luffy is just passed the fuck out because he can't breathe and can't swim. And in his inner monologue, he's like, "You said you wouldn't die, right?" And we get a sort of like flashback of Luffy never giving up and the fight with Zoro, and Sanji just having this existential crisis about like how Luffy and Zoro represent a part of him that he has been trying to smother. And they're throwing it in his face. The fact that you can do what you need to do and live an absolute life full of like with no regrets if you live the right way. Um and there's a bunch of flashbacks, and then he just starts hallucinating because he's low on O2, like mid existential crisis, um, where he sees like all blue happening in front of him while he's trying to get Luffy back up to the surface, and I'm like,
I mean,
yeah,
like,
boy's just low on oxygen and hallucinating, but I'm glad this will move the plot forward a little bit.
it's like I'm surprised that Sanji even survived going down underneath the water because I feel like any normal person would have died by the time they got to Luffy.
Well, Sanji has like actually really good lungs. Um, there's a few times where some members of the crew end up having to do shit underwater, and Sanji is like I think the one member who's just had to do like proper underwater fighting. Um,
Mm.
well, I mean, barring the newest crew member, like way 1,000 episodes, 1,000 chapters into the future, that person fights underwater a bit more. Uh, but Sanji has to do at some point in the story do some underwater fighting. uh he's just got big lungs. He can just take a deep breath and can seemingly like deal with the pain of his lungs burning for a long time. So Sanji gets him up to the surface and is trying to resuscitate Luffy. Gin is having his own existential crisis because again, Gin's whole thing was he genuinely believed with all of his being that Krieg was the strongest man, which is dumb because again, he's blue. Like Like, there's no way Krieg would be the strongest man. Like, there's no physical way he would be the strongest man without, you know, conquering the Grand Line, basically, right? So I find the whole thing kind of dumb. But Gin's having an existential crisis because Krieg, lost to Luffy. Um, Sanji's having a panic because Luffy won't wake up and then realizes that Luffy's just fucking asleep. At which point, Don Krieg, who's still unconscious, gets up on his feet and just starts rampaging and yelling that he's the strongest, that he has to be the strongest, and throwing his crew around. We'll see Luffy do something like this at some point, I'm pretty sure. But basically, Krieg is unconscious, but his sheer determination to be the strongest has gotten him on his feet, rampaging. And you know what? Like, I don't know why Oda doesn't use Krieg more. Like, I think Krieg, or at least Gin, would be interesting in the story more, but like, Don Krieg, if he got over that lack of backbone and just gave into his strength and actual ambition, like, could be, like, really strong. But, Gin walks over and punches him in the gut, taking him out, because again, he's already unconscious. And throws him over his shoulder and, says, "We lost, Captain. We need to accept that. We fucking lost." And the cooks all stand up like they're the ones who did anything, which I find very funny. Um, he asks Sanji to tell Luffy that he'll see him again on the Grand Line. Um, but he also says that he's gonna die in like maybe 5 hours because of the poisoning. He doesn't. I'm pretty sure at some point later we do get a glimpse of like Gin and Krieg reacting to like Luffy's wanted poster. But I think that might be the last time we see them, which is super weird again because Oda loves using these characters more, but he just never seems to use Krieg or Gin. So this is something that might be the case. Oda often has a ton of shit he wants to include in One Piece that he has to cut for time. And you'll see this a lot more later, where there are these whole characters who seem to have this whole thing happening around them, but we never get more detail about them. And Oda comes out and says, "Yeah, I had like 30 chapters dedicated to this character, and my editors told me I'd basically have to, jump off a cliff if I was doing that. So, we're moving the story along at its own pace. But there is a thing there, and I'm really excited for it, and it's still happening even if you don't see it." Right? It's just this thing where Oda has this. It's like D&D, where Oda has a story for every NPC that's happening, but he doesn't have enough time to show the player characters it all the time. Um, so maybe he had more to do with Gin and Krieg, but it was never the right time, and eventually it became irrelevant to include them, which I think maybe happened. I don't know. I've literally never heard rumors of this. This is like me rationalizing it. Um, so yeah,
So I
like
guess
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I'm guessing it's we're at episode 30 now.
Not quite. There's a little bit left. Um,
Oh,
yep. So Sanji gives Gin and the Creek pirates the boat for their grocery trips. He piles all 100 people onto the ship, and we see Panda Man. Did you see Panda Man at 2114?
no.
Ah, you
Hang on,
missed
can I go
Pandy
to
Man.
2114 and have a look?
Yeah,
Hang on, episode 29. Let me just select it and find 2114.
so this is Panda Man, an infamous character in One Piece who will show up always. He just hides in crowds and is often giving the viewer a thumbs up in case they notice him.
Where
It's
is the
He's in the pile of men towards the top, sort of top middle. There's just a Panda Man dude with his fingers giving like a thumb up.
right 21?
14 was my time on my viewer where it's like Gin standing at the mast of the grocery step or the front beam and there's the pile of crew behind him. You will see one man who is like a weird panda human uh giving like a thumbs up. And crickets. So Panda Man is like a running Easter egg in One Piece. Oda just hides him in crowds or in places all the time. I don't think this is the first time we see Panda Man. I think he showed up in one of the earlier episodes and I missed him. Like I just like again, I'm pretty sure he showed up at some point.
No,
I
I want to try to see Panda Man.
I don't think
Look,
this was the first time. It might be the first time Panda Man was introduced, but he will pop up a lot and anywhere. Basically, anywhere there's a crowd or a place where Oda could maybe sneak in Panda Man is just a cute little cameo. He does it. Um, so that happens, and
yeah.
then we get to the end of the episode, and we see Nami on the Going Merry, and she's saying, "I really had fun with them. I hope they will take me back when they find me." And she says like, "I hope I can see them again," and starts to cry. And boy, boy is seeing Nami cry rough. But boy does it get much worse. But that's future me's problem. And Nami isn't
Mm.
even like my favorite member of the crew. She's all right, but boy does her arc fuck me up. And that takes us to episode 30, which again spoils the end of the episode in the title, where it basically says Sanji is joining Luffy. Like, we all knew it was gonna happen, but man, they really don't need to tell me in the title.
I think what I'm gonna do while you're explaining it, I'm just gonna have like a play-by-play of like bits of the episode so I can jog my memory as well.
Okay. Um, so Luffy wakes up after the big fight. Luffy once again was asleep. This is a huge running part of Luffy's character. After a huge fight that really pushes his body, he ends up sleeping for days, weeks. A lot of time gets lost for Luffy in sleep, which is kind of ominous. Um, he freaks out about his straw hat. Sanji tells him where it is. He also delivers Gin's message. He said that he'll meet you on the ground sea, or the Grand Line. And Luffy looks at Sanji. He's like, "He said that to you?" And Sanji's like, "No, to you, you idiot." Um, Luffy goes to offer Sanji to join the crew again. Sanji cuts him off
Oh,
and refuses.
oh, yeah, you also because I'm watching the play-by-play now. Um, there was a part where Luffy was like, "Oh, it's the last day of chores."
What was it?
It's like a part where Luffy's like, "It's my last day of chores." So it's
Ah,
like,
yes, Luffy
and
does
then he
bring up
said,
that.
"Do you want to join me?"
Yeah, he does bring up that because he fought off Krieg, it's his last day on the
Yeah.
Baratie. So Sanji again refuses the offer, and we get a close-up scene of Luffy just going like, "Fine, I give up." But then we cut out, and his hand is like firmly grips Sanji by the neck, and Sanji's like, "You say you've given up, but your hand is disagreeing with you," uh, which is very funny. They have a moment where they talk, and Sanji brings up the all blue and asks Luffy if he knows about it. And Luffy, of course, is an idiot, so he says no. So Sanji just starts info dumping, like a good little boy with a developmental disorder, like me, like
Jeff
me in
is
One
just
Piece,
standing on,
like
like,
me in
Jeff
One
is
Piece.
standing on they're standing on the balcony looking at all of it, just like smiling, like, yeah, they
Yeah,
came
Papa
through.
Zeph is watching his boy, and he sees Sanji just rapturously happy while he talks about the All Blue. Um, so we hear the bell start at some point for food time. All the chefs are in the dining hall, the restaurant eating. Sanji and Luffy show up and there are no seats for them. And he's like, "Well, fuck all of you then. I guess I'll sit on the floor." And Luffy immediately goes, they're all acting very weird, like instantly. Luffy once again can be an absolute idiot, but man, such a good read of person when he has to be. So all the chefs, starting with Carne, or no, Patty, start to insult the soup. Patty like sits up and is like, "Who prepared the soup this morning?" And Sanji's like, "Oh, I did." Like he perks right up. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna talk about my soup? Isn't it really good? I worked really hard." Because he switches from like an idiot to a puppy to an idiot very quickly. Um, and Patty begins insulting the soup, which triggers Sanji because if there's one thing he can do and do well, it's cook. Um,
Mm.
and then Carney tries it, and he also says it's terrible. And then all the other chefs start joining in and making Sanji really pissed. And then Zeph like barks at all them to sit down and eat their fucking soup because he's not about to have anyone waste food. And all the chefs like look at him like, oh shit, it's Daddy. He's mad. And Zeph, we watch Zeph drink the whole soup and then shatter the fucking bowl in the ground and go, that was fucking terrible. We couldn't possibly serve this to customers. It would ruin the restaurant's reputation. And boy, you know what? The other boys, Sanji could just beat up. But oh, when Dad starts insulting his cooking, that triggers the boy something awful. So he gets right up in Zeph's face, demanding to know what's different between his soup and Zeph's. Because, you know, he learned from him, he's emulating him, he's poured every bit of him into cooking. And like, what part of Zeph's soup is better than Sanji's? And we get this moment where Zeph fucking punches him. And remember, Sanji and Zeph don't use their hands to fight ever. Because if they ever injure their hands, it would compromise their ability to cook and could potentially cause trouble on the sea. It's a big part of why Zeph was known as Red Leg Zeph. He just refuses to use his hands in combat. He tries to keep them away from getting hurt as much as possible. So everyone goes quiet because Zeph just fucking punched Sanji in the face and said, you know,
I
it's a.
mean, I did.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I did wonder what was strange was like that Zeth's hat was like for some reason really, really tall, like a skyscraper chef hat.
Oh, it's because he's the head chef. He's just it's
It's a
just
pun.
again, Oda doesn't know shit about shit, so to him he's like, oh, the head chef must have a big head, and Zeph's a really really good head chef, so he's gonna want a really big head. Again, Oda just doesn't know shit about shit, and he just makes visual gags because again, One Piece is like at its heart comedy, so Zeph's hat is always comically large because that's what Oda imagines a world traveling head chef pirate like Zeph would have, which is fine. Like, there doesn't need to be any sort of logic or real life sense to any of it, but like, yeah, that's why his hat's super silly. Um, so Sanji fucking runs off and throws a literal temper tantrum, jumping into the air and just kicking at clouds in like one of the dumbest looking scenes ever. Uh, and of course, Luffy's just eating food this whole time because none of this is his business. And he walks over to the soup and he starts eating the soup. And he's like, "Hey, you know this soup's like really good." And every one of them is just like, "Yeah, obviously Sanji made it. It's amazing." You idiot. And like without even Luffy like prompting, like, then why did you lie? They just start explaining like it's the only way to get Sanji to like listen, and how boy he really got mad, and boy, it was really close, and how their acting was rough. Um, and we find out that all the pirates lied to try and encourage Sanji to leave. I don't know why these people can't just have a proper conversation with each other. They have to do this shit. But basically they all respect Sanji. Even Patty and Carney, they all love him. Uh Despite his flaws. And they love his cooking and respect him as a chef. But he's crippling himself emotionally staying here instead of pursuing his dream. Because he feels like he has to, because he owes Zeph for his kindness. And so Zeph tells Luffy that he wants him to take Sanji with him on his ship. And Sanji says no, which is very funny because all the crew are like, "Don't you want him on your crew? Like, is he not good enough for you?" And Luffy's like, "Oh, he's more than good enough, and boy, do I want him! Like, I love that idiot." But he said no, like he wants to be here. If he's gonna be on my ship, he has to want to be on my ship. Um, And Sanji at this point has sort of calmed down from his vent kicking the sky and has stopped at the door hearing this conversation. And he hears them explain how they're just trying to do what's best for Sanji, how they all respect him, they love his cooking, but he needs to leave for his own health, basically, and like his own ambitions. And Sanji has a moment where he's about to start crying and he goes to light his cigarette and he can't get it up. which is something that's very funny because for some reason, whenever Sanji is sad, his lighter doesn't work. This will come up a lot whenever Sanji's having an emotional moment. He just can't get that fucking cigarette lit. When it's just one of those things that Oda likes to do. At which point he hears some screaming and a shark, and we get some weird cuts of a shark swimming through the water with what looks like Yosaku.
And then it is.
It is. So the shark jumps up onto the ship, delivering Yosaku and furthering the plot. And we actually get some of the crew members bringing up fishmen, like some of the cooks. Like, is that a fishman? And this is, I think, our first name drop of Fishman Island. They're like, one of them came all the way from Fishman Island just to go to our restaurant, and it's like, it's just a fucking throwaway line, but it is spoiling shit like 800 episodes away. Like, or no, it'd be like 600 episodes away, but still, uh, this is like once again we're passively learning things about fishmen. There is apparently a Fishman Island. Yosaku explains that they were following Nami and they discovered the direction that she was going, and that it's a pretty dangerous place. But he doesn't go into more detail. Just that they if they're gonna go there, they definitely need Luffy. So Luffy's like, all right, I don't understand anything you just said, but let's go. Because that's Luffy. He doesn't really listen to people. And Sanji declares that he's going to come with him. And reveals to the chefs that he could hear what they were saying the whole time, which is
Sorry.
great. Um, Yosaku fucking starts dancing, and again, this is something that Oda will bring up later, but basically Luffy has sort of like a social developmental disorder kind of deal. Luffy doesn't really understand people. Like, he's a great read of person, but the way Luffy was raised, which we'll find out more later, he really doesn't know how to interact with people socially a lot. So Luffy just kind of follows the cues of other people around him. And you'll see him do this a lot with Usopp. Where if Usopp reacts to something a certain way, Luffy will react the same way, even if it doesn't really make sense for Luffy to react that way. Because he's just mimicking Usopp, because Usopp's about the same age as him, so he thinks that's how he should react to things. Luffy kind of mirrors people around him, so Yosaku starts dancing, so Luffy starts dancing, and he starts doing the Johnny half of the Yosaku and Johnny dance. Uh, which, again, I like that Oda starts teasing in that part of Luffy's character, because it becomes sort of relevant. Never to, like, the main story, I don't think, but it is a thing that happens with Luffy. And I just wrote down Yosaku's fucking dancing. We get a little bit more banter between Zeph and Sanji, which is great. There's a lot of flashback stuff with Sanji in his room. But before that, we see that Luffy is just fucking stealing a bunch of their food, basically. And I mean,
It's like
they're giving it to him,
it's
but he
like
just keeps telling them to put more in there. He's like, more.
it's like they have Sanji's boat ready to go, and then this like Luffy's like, I need more meat, 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 meat.
Yeah. Oh, how about that marbled meat up there? And they're like, stop. No. And Zeph shows up in the kitchen and goes to offer Luffy his logbook, which, remember, was too precious for him to give Krieg. And Luffy just looks at him and goes, nah, I'm gonna make my own
Like, yeah, I
story.
don't
I
want
don't need to know it. And that is, oh, that's Luffy. Oh, we're gonna see a lot more of him doing that to people offering information. Boy, he's lucky Nami wasn't here, because fuck, she would hit him so hard. She would take that logbook in a heartbeat. Um, so we see Sanji in his room. He's packed up like a singular bag and a suitcase because he's a classy bitch. And we see him looking at a picture of like him, little baby him, and a happy young Zeph, with the Baratier in the background, like the inaugural christening of the ship. And we get this moment where we see Sanji and Zeph both in their own rooms, sort of sharing the same memories, going through the same flashbacks of their interactions, watching Sanji learn how to cook, um, the memory of the Sanji and Zeph seeing the ship, the restaurant, the Baratier for the first time. And it's just this big emotional sort of build because, and we'll find out later, but this is really Sanji's first home. Sanji is the boy with two sad backstories, and we'll find out the other sad backstory like around episode 800. Uh, maybe closer to 900. No, no, 800. Um, but for right
Just
now,
say 850.
it's somewhere around then. It's a long arc. I think that arc was like 70 or 80 episodes, so it would have to be about around 800 when it starts. Because of how long we've been in the current arc. Um, and so this is like Sanji's home, and it's his first home. Like that little kid who was on that ship, he wasn't there because his parents were on the ship. Like that was what he was doing to survive. We'll find out much later. Like he was working on that ship as like a kid. Um, so all the chefs are outside waiting for him to leave. He comes down and starts walking between them all. Patty and Carney jump out to try and attack him to get back for, you know, him beating them up for the past so many years. And he quickly just dives backwards between them all and gives them both a kick in the face for goodbye. And the chefs are like, "You realize you could never beat him, right? Like, like you realize you're like punching above your league." And Sanji walks up to Luffy, and Luffy's like, "This is a great boat. Are you sure we can have it?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's Sanji's boat. Like, that's not ours. That's his." Which is cool. I don't think Sanji before this really owned property, so like in his other tragic backstory. So that's cool that he owns a ship. Um, and Luffy looks at Sanji. He's like, "Is this okay? You don't need to say anything." And Sanji's just like,
This
"Nope.
was the moment.
Yeah,
This was the moment.
this is the
That was
moment where
our
I
crying
cry."
moment.
And I did cry, but not a lot. Not as much as I'll cry in the next arc. That's for sure. That arc has me sobbing. This one is like a very masculine few tears down the cheek. Um, but
I cried a lot more than a few years.
as Sanji stands on the ship ready to embark, Zeph's voice calls out, calling him Sanji for the first time instead of like, little kid, like shitty kid. Like he calls him Sanji and just says don't catch cold. And everything stops and I start to cry. And Sanji starts to cry. Uh because yeah, he's leaving home, but it's still his home. His dad still loves him. Even if he's gone, this home will still be here, and if he ever comes back, they'll be ready for him. And like we'll find out in Sanji's other backstory, he was never allotted this kind of kindness in his life. Sanji is really Zeph's kid. Sanji has parents, we'll find out much later, but the only parent really in his life who was really a parent was Zeph. And that's why Zeph hating his soup was what really triggered him. Everything Sanji does is because of this absolute desire to prove himself worthy of Zeph saving him. And it's such a good moment. And it's the first time we see Sanji call him Zeph. It's the first time they refer to each other by name and not like old geezer or shitty geezer and crappy kid, right? Because Sanji picked up Zeph's speech patterns of calling things shitty, which I find very funny, and I love that that never goes away. Um, so Sanji does the deep Japanese bow, like forehead to the ground, and this is like I'm tearing up at this point, but I don't start crying until until
I think it's like, yeah,
Sanji calls
until
out.
that.
Yeah, until Sanji calls out. Owner Zeph, I can never repay you for the kindness you've given me, and I'm just like I start crying. Um, and again, this is just all further confirming Luffy that he made the right choice and that Sanji is a good boy. And like Zeph starts crying, and I start crying, and everyone's just having a good manly cry, and there's nothing wrong with that. Fucking toxic masculinity is terrible, Sometimes you gotta cry, man. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, and there's this beautiful fucking line where Sanji like goes to get on the boat, and all of the crew is crying because like Patty and Carne start crying because they're gonna miss Sanji. Like, yeah, they fucking were rivals with each other. Like they never got along, but they loved him like a brother. They were just brothers who showed their love and affection by fighting because that's all they know. And that almost catches Sanji by surprise. Like he looks surprised that they're crying for him. Like he never realized that that was their love language. Like which is because when we find out more about Sanji's backstory, makes a lot of sense that he really can't read when people are being affectionate ever. Um, so it like there's just this beautiful animation where Sanji looks surprised that they're sad that he's leaving and that they're going to miss him. And Zeph fucking says men should part without a word. And I just write down, said the man who spoke first. Said the man who called out to his son and told him not to catch a cold. You fucking bastard. You don't get to sit there after making me cry and go, men should part without a word. You shut the fuck up, you old prick. um, and Sanji leaves, uh, promising
Now
someday that he'll return.
this part I did not remember watching at all through my first like watch through, and I only seen it in the play by play here. I did not realize there was a part after that
Yeah, with Nami.
where you literally see the thing. I didn't like the whole thing where it was. I didn't even see this preview here either.
Well, I
Like
never
I
watched the
completely
previews.
missed this.
I never watched the previews. You
Like
shouldn't.
the
You once it says to be continued,
it's
you should
like the
usually
whole
bow
thing
out.
I did not see whatsoever. Like the sword shrimp flag
Yeah, the
with the whole
nose.
like two pillars thing when Nami was going there. I did not remember seeing that.
Yeah. So that is the last scene. We see Nami on the Mary. She's changed her shirt to something sleeveless, which will become very important next episode. Um, because this will be the first time we've seen Nami sleeveless. Fun fact. For very important reasons. And she is sailing towards this ominous large building, flying a flag that again looks like a big razor-nosed thing, which is reminiscent to the poster she was holding. And that's because we're leading into the Nami arc, which is the Arlong pirate arc, with episode 31.
And that
Though
is where we
episode 31 might be the buggy filler, I'm not sure. I don't know if they put in that episode where it's like little buggy adventures while Luffy is traveling to catch
we
up to
haven't
Nami.
seen more Buggy there.
I don't know because again I don't have like a list of the episodes pulled up to view. Um,
Mm,
but that is our episodes this week. These were some great episodes. Not the first time I shed a tear in One Piece because that usually hits me with Usopp, and his mom. But this is a good tear. I can usually force myself to cry thinking of this moment. If I think about it seriously enough. There are other moments in One Piece that make me cry easier though. So this wouldn't be my first moment
mm,
where I'm like, all right, I need to cry. What can I think of? I don't usually go to Catch a Cold, but it's in like the top five for like how
mm,
easily it makes me cry.
mm.
Good moment. And that's it. We're moving into a
Yep.
whole new arc. I think the next arc takes like maybe 11 episodes, so we might be in it for two
Yeah, I've seen
sessions.
through some of the preview images. It seems like it's gonna take a while, like 13 episodes.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It takes up like 2 volumes of the manga, so that makes sense. It takes up like 10 chapters, maybe a little more. It's a pretty beefy segment, and this is the first time we're gonna be seeing like the Straw Hat crew fighting another crew now that Luffy has crewmates. This is gonna be the first time where it isn't just like Luffy and Zoro taking on the big bad and maybe the big bad second in command. This is going to be, oh, there is a crew of people that they are fighting. They have to take care of all the fodder, and then each one of them is going to deal with an elite member of the other crew, which is kind of the format
Mm.
for, battle manga, right? Like, you get through all the fodder on the enemy team, and then everyone pairs off 1-to-1 with
I
their
mean,
rival.
unless you're Demon Slayer, where it's literally just the upper rank demons and that's it.
I've never watched Demon Slayer, so I don't know. I don't have a frame of
Uh,
reference. I've watched the pilot and went, that looked neat, and then I never had the desire
Demon
to watch
Slayer
any
is
more.
cool.
I mean, it looks great.
I watched
It is obscenely popular here in Japan.
so I've watched the anime like up to season two where it is like at where it's finished, the entertainment district. It's pretty good. The
Yeah,
animation is top tier.
yeah, that's
That's
one
for
of the things
sure.
I've heard that the animation, especially for certain episodes, is correct, which is great. I might watch it one day, but like I have this thing where something will get really popular but fly under my radar, and then people will start telling me to watch it, and I just don't have any desire to do it. It happened with Stranger Things too. I've never watched anything of Stranger Things,
Neither
but
have I.
like all my friends are like, "But you would love it. You're like the D&D guy. You're like the dude who's like 80s nostalgia." I'm like, I wasn't alive in the 80s. Like, shut up. Just because I have a type, you bastards. And I'm like, I'm absolutely sure if I watched Stranger Things, it would be a great nostalgia trip, and I'd probably love it. But I just have no desire to do it. It's just like I don't.
Yeah.
It just happens. Game of Thrones was the same thing too. I watched like 4 episodes of Game of Thrones and went, "This is kind of neat. I'll get the books." And then I never watched another episode of Game of Thrones. I don't know. Sometimes things just get really big and just like become something bigger than what they are. And thankfully, One Piece wasn't that because it easily could have been. But that
Mm.
has been this episode, and it's getting late. We've been going for an hour and a half, with some
Yes,
technical
I
difficulties.
suspected it would be
Uh, thankfully, the second half is uh free of any static. Um, so I want to thank everyone
so.
for coming by, and I want to thank you, Rudy, uh, for talking One Piece with me. I am
Yeah,
still super happy to be sharing your first One Piece watch through with you. Like,
I yeah, I do think I will be doing the play-by-play in future episodes because it helps me remember some events.
that's fair.
It's very helpful.
I mean, whatever works for you. I think it's a fine thing to do. I definitely wouldn't have the bandwidth to do it while recording and doing the call because I'm using like a mobile Wi-Fi router thing. Like my internet here is not great. Uh, it was great, and then I took this new job and moved into this shitty shoebox in the city. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. I'm currently in a city that has 1/3 of the population of the entire country I was from beforehand. It's kind of a big thing. It's weird living
Wow.
in a city with 10 million people and being like, right, there were only 30 million people in Canada. The city I am in
Yeah,
has 1/3 of my country's entire population. This place is fucked. Like, well, listen, everyone, you might have a lot of romanticized ideas about Japan, and listen, some of them are true. I won't deny it. Some
I
of
mean,
it's really good. Some of it's so fucking good, you have no idea. But a lot
I,
of it is garbage.
I think we should save this for after the episode because the episode might be dragging on a bit now.
Yeah, I mean, it was only 2 more minutes. All right, goodbye, everybody.
Well, here is proper farewell. Goodbye, and we'll see you in the next one.